Alors, bonjour, bienvenue à ce tuto de grammaire. Thanks very much for being here. And we're going to have a look at pronouns today. So this kind of assumes a little bit of knowledge about pronouns, but I'm going to do a little bit of a recap as well. So we're going to look at some exercises. And the first one we'll just have a look at here is vous racontez votre journée à votre ami quand vous la voyez? So do you tell your friend about your day when you see them? So what this is showing is there's two different kinds of pronoun that we can use. So oui, quand je la vois, je lui raconte ma journée. So both of these are referring to the friend, but notice that one of them is la and one of them is lui. Now you might already know why that is, hopefully you do, but I'm just going to recap why. So je lui raconte ma journée. Why is that one lui? Because here we see, vous racontez votre journée à votre ami. Now that little preposition, that little à there, means that the pronoun that we're going to choose to talk about a male or a female, actually is the same, is lui. But this verb doesn't have an a, voir does not have an a after it. So the pronoun that we're going to use to talk about this friend, because we know it's a female friend with the e there, is la. Let's just have a recap on why that is. I'm just going to scroll down to some previous pages. This is from your grammar book. So first of all, let's go right back and have a look at when do we talk about a person as being le, la, or les. And the time we talk about a person, so that would be him, je le regarde. It could be it as well, by the way. So I'm looking at him. Let's say him, but it could be it. Je la regarde, I'm looking at her. Je les regarde, I'm looking at them. So that's nice and straightforward, isn't it? And the reason why it's straightforward is because the verb regarder doesn't have anything after it. There's no a after it and there's no de. It's a very straightforward, simple verb. So therefore, we just use le, la, les to refer as pronouns. But if we were talking about me, you, we, or you, in those cases, we would use me, te, le, la. Le, la is the important one because we have nothing afterwards, etc. And then les. So if you say, I'm looking at me, for example, je me regarde. I'm looking at you, je te regarde. But then if I'm looking at him or her or it, je le regarde, je la regarde. There you go. If it was nous, it would be je nous regarde, I'm looking at us. Je vous regarde, I'm looking at you. And then je les regarde. But the important thing is that's all because of how the verb works. In fact, it hasn't got anything after it. There's nothing else that's causing that. Okay, now, if we look at verbs that have an a after them, so we've got a whole load of examples here. So not all verbs have a preposition a after them, just a bunch of verbs. And I'm afraid there's no rhyme or reason to it. You just need to remember which ones do. So I would say just start recognizing a few that you use quite regularly, and then add to that list as you discover them. Well, that's the way I've done it. But you might have a different approach. So parler à, téléphoner à, écrire à. What happens when a verb has an a after it? Well, we just saw that list, didn't we, for the le, la. And if you notice for the a, instead of having le or la or les in there, we have leur. Lui and leur. And the good news is that it's lui, whether it's le or la, so for masculine and for feminine, so for him or her, and leur for plural. So if we look at some examples, like we just did with regarder, so téléphoner à quelqu'un. So this is an example of a verb that has an a after it. So it would be je lui téléphone, so which means that je téléphone à mon père, so that would be masculine. Je téléphone à ma mère, feminine, so that becomes je lui téléphone, call her. Je téléphone à mes parents. I call my parents. So I call them. Je leur téléphone. All right, so that's a quick recap. If you haven't done this before, that would possibly be a bit too fast for you to follow the whole concept. So don't be feeling like I don't get it at all. I'm never going to get it. This is really for people who are revising this. I'll do another one going over the basic spending time on each. But today we're just seeing how those two could work together. So we come back to our example here. Vous racontez votre journée à votre ami. So we know it's raconter à votre ami. Quand vous la voyez, when you see her. And there's voyez, which doesn't have anything after it. So, oui, quand je la vois, because when I see her, because voyez doesn't have anything after it. So it's là. Je lui raconte ma journée. So yes, when I see her, I tell her about my day. All right. So that's the idea. So now let's look at some examples. Vous dites bonjour à la voisine quand vous la racontez. Sorry. Vous dites bonjour à la voisine quand vous la rencontrez. Do you say hello to your neighbor, feminine by the way, when you meet her? Okay. Would you like to write down or think to yourself, what would that be with the two pronouns? So you've got to choose which one has got the la in it, because we're talking about voisine, and which one has a lui in it, because it has an a after it. So do you want to have a go at either writing that down or thinking about what you think that answer would be? Okay, well, we're kind of given some help actually by the way this is set up anyway. So, oui, quand je la rencontre, because they've already given us that pronoun, haven't they, on that side? Yes. So, quand je la rencontre, when I meet her, je lui dis bonjour. Je lui dis bonjour. I'm going to write it in the chat. Hopefully you can see this. So, oui, quand je la rencontre. Yes, when I meet her. Je lui dis bonjour. I say hello to her. Okay, because the lui dit bonjour is because we can tell dites bonjour à la voisine, you've got the a. All right, let's try the next one. You get the idea. Vous posez des questions au professeur quand vous le voyez. So do you ask your teacher questions when you see him? So he's un professeur, because we've got au professeur, and le voyez, so this is a masculine. Right, would you like to write down what you think the answer would be, or just think about what you think the answer would be? Remember, we're already given half of it, really. So hopefully you're going to start to see the pattern and start to feel confident about it. So, oui, quand je le vois, yes, when I see him, oui, quand je le vois. Because this is posé O, because the O is the same as a, it's just the a, le, isn't it, together. So, oui, je lui pose des questions. Let's write that in the chat. So, oui, quand je le vois, which is the same. We've already been given that in the question. Je lui pose des questions. Yeah, because it was poser des questions au professeur. So there was an a in there. Excellent. Doing well with this, I hope. Okay, let's now look at number 3. Vous dites au revoir aux étudiants. That's the plural, isn't it, of a? Vous dites au revoir aux étudiants quand vous les quittez. Do you say goodbye to students when you leave them? We already know that dire was the one which had the lui in it. But notice this time we're talking about a plural. So we've got les quitter here, nice and simple. Do you remember what it was for the plural? Right, either say it out loud or write it down or just think what you might think the answer is. Oui, quand je les quitte, that's given, isn't it already? Quand je les quitte, when I leave them, je leur dis au revoir, because they're plural. Plural. So, oui, quand je les quitte, we've got that, haven't we already? Je leur dis au revoir. Hopefully that's what you got. Good, 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 good. Excellent. Right, this is making sense. Okay, so this exercise is going to follow the same route every single time. So I hope you're getting the hang of it now. Okay, so numéro 4. Vous parlez en français à la secrétaire quand vous l'appelez. Well, we know it's à la secrétaire, so we know that the secrétaire is feminine, because otherwise it would be au. Okay, so we don't know that the secretary is feminine by the vous l'appelez here, but we do know here. But that doesn't actually matter, does it? Because we're going to have the L apostrophe on this side, always. And this one, because this is an a situation, we're going to be using lui. And lui is the same for masculine and for feminine. Okay, so what's the reply? So oui, quand je l'appelle, when I call her, because we don't need to know, it's just an apostrophe again. Oui, quand je l'appelle, je lui parle en français. Je lui parle en français. Was that the answer you got? Good, good, excellent. All right, let's try number 5. Vous offrez à boire à vos amis. So we've got the un there. Quand vous les invitez, vous offrez à boire à vos amis quand vous les invitez. So inviter or the les. This is plural, isn't it? So remember that the plural is leur, of course. So, oui, quand je les invite, je leur offre à boire. Quand je les invite, je leur offre à boire. All right, let's try number 6. Vous racontez vos aventures à votre frère quand vous le revoyez. So do you tell your brother about your adventures when you see him again? When you see him? So à votre frère, and then we've got the le here. So raconter à, which we've seen before. So the answer would be, say it out loud or write it down. It's up to you. Or just think it. Okay, so quand je le revois, je lui raconte mes aventures. Because there's only one of the brother. The adventures are plural, but there's only one of the brother. So quand je le revois, when I see him, je lui raconte mes aventures. Good. Okay, number 7. Vous répondez toujours à vos enfants. So that's a leur. Quand ils vous parlent. Do you always answer your children when they speak to you? Okay. Oui. Quand ils me parlent, because we're going to change that from vous to me. Quand ils me parlent, je le réponds toujours. Because it's a leur, because it's à vos enfants. Yeah? So à mes enfants. So quand ils me parlent, je leur réponds toujours. Okay, last one then. Vous apportez des fleurs à Marie quand elle vous invite à dîner. So do you take flowers to Marie when she invites you to dinner? Ah, now they've moved it around, haven't they? But it's still the same idea. Oui, j'apporte des fleurs. Ah, hold on. Je lui apporte des fleurs quand elle m'invite à dîner. Je lui apporte des fleurs quand elle m'invite à dîner. Good. Okay. If you found that difficult or have more questions and like me to do just a tuto just on one part of one of those pronouns, then just drop me a message and I can do that too. Okay, because that was that was a revision. But for some of you, that might be completely brand new, which would be quite difficult, I think. Bon, bah, merci beaucoup. J'espère que vous avez trouvé ça intéressant, utile. Et puis, bah, à bientôt alors. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir. Au revoir.